Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Android programming. Let's look into the Android in-app billing, which will be focusing on the subscription plan. At a point in your app development, one may decide to integrate subscription plans to premium content in your app. Google Play in-app billing has come up with a robust structure to get that covered. In this tutorial, we'll be integrating subscription plan for monthly, 3 months, 6 month, and yearly plans, where users will be auto-renewed for plans and could upgrade or downgrade any plan. I'll be heading straight to Android Studio, where I have the source of this application, and I'll be explaining in details how to integrate the subscription plan from the Android Google Play service. But before I continue, you have to own a Google Play console where you will be able to upload source code to the Google Play market, and that is the first step to actually get this completed. You have to pay a token of probably $25 or so to actually get an account, and that is a one-off payment. So you have to do that before you actually get in-app billing integrated into your application. That's fine. Head back to Android Studio. The source application has an utility package, which is a general purpose boilerplate that can be reused in any app. So you can actually reuse these utilities right there in your app, where you have the IAB exception, the broadcast receiver, helper, results, inventory, the purchase, security, and the SKU details. So this can be reused. They are all boilerplates. The main logic sits rather in the main activity, where you get to display the kind of subscription you're talking about, and you get to bill the user appropriately. And one more thing that you really need to have here is the base 64 encoded public key. This should be your application public key that you got from the Google Play Developer Console. This is not your developer public key, it is app specific public key. You can actually get your public key rather from the Google Play Console dashboard. You head straight to the developer tools. Right there under the services and APIs, you get to find your base 64 encoded public key right there. Very lengthy, so you copy this bunch and paste it right there into your application. So I'll be heading back to Android Studio, where I'll show you where I actually had that done. I had a constant file, or let's say a constant class, where I actually lock in all reusable string values, majorly the base 64 encoded public key, even the plans that we'll be looking at. We have the monthly, 3 months, 6 months, and yearly. You can actually set that up also right there in the Google Play Console, where you, after you might have uploaded your APK to the alpha release, I will implore you to upload to the alpha release, whereby you can also set up some testers. You head straight to the manage alpha to actually set up your testers. It's recommended once you're actually trying to integrate in-app billing into your application, you have to set up some testers, which will actually get to test the application, and as well the email address, the Gmail email address that you use to actually open up your Google Play Developer Console cannot be used as a tester. So you have to actually use other Gmail accounts so that you won't actually be billed anytime you test up the in-app billing. You can actually do that when you are creating a new application. You can head straight to the dashboard. From the dashboard, you create a new application, and you get set up. You set your application ready. This is actually the dashboard of the in-app subscription APK, which I'm about explaining. I've uploaded that to the alpha release, So right there in the alpha release, you create some tester groups. You just add up some email addresses of the testers, and you have that set up. So that's very, very recommended. And you also need to, right there in the store presence, in the in-app products, you have to set up the in-app type that you really wanted. Is it a managed? Is it a subscription? You opt for the subscription, and at that point in time, you're going to actually lock in the type of subscription in question. If you can see, I have the subscriptions: 4 active, 0 inactive. The 4 actives are the monthly, 6 month, 3 months, and yearly, which you could see right there. You need to lock in the price. Once you have a price and you've actually triggered active, you won't be able to change the price unless you cancel out the whole name and ID. So that's you have to be very careful when you are setting up this. The price, the billing period. You can also set up the grace period. Probably you want to add the grace period of 7 days. Let me click on this so that we'll be able to see some of the fields that you will need to actually fill up right there. This stage is very, very important. You need to actually get this done correctly so that you won't have to go back and forth to actually get some things corrected here. Now you have to lock in the title, and you have the product ID, which must match with what you're going to have right there in the constants. Can you see right there in the constants? We have the Delaroy monthly, which matches with what we are having right there as the product ID. Very important. You add your title, the description of the billing, and the status. Probably you want it inactive or active, and the price. You also have to lock that in. The billing period is monthly. You can see, you can go for other periods. You can add a free trial period. How many days of trial period? This 7 days, 3 days or so. You have an introductory price. Probably you want users that are coming into the billing for first time to actually get a lesser price. So after that, they get subscribed to the real or the standard price. So that's just it. This is the grace period, and you have the local prices for different countries, which your billing will be covering. So that's just how to set up that right there in the Google Play Developer Console. Once you get that set up, you can head straight back to your code. Before you actually finish up, you have to have built your code, and you have to have generate a signed APK, not a debug one. So I think by this stage you should know how to generate a signed APK. Just go to the build variant, change the build variant from the debug to the release mode. The Gradle will have to recompile the project one more time, and at the point in time you can head straight to build. You opt for the generate signed APK. Once you go there, you have to firstly create a new key store, and if you have one, you point down to the key store, you pass in the password, the alias, and also the key password. But if you're creating a new key store, you also create that by opting for the create new, and you lock it. You give the path where the key store will be saved and the name of the key store, which is always in JKS format, and you provide a password, you provide an alias, and also the password for the key. So all that, once you have that set up, you could sign up an APK. You could also add another flavor to that, and it's all highly recommended right there in the build Gradle to register the key alias, the password, and the path to the key store, where you can actually point that to the key store and the password. So this could you could remember what the password is and the alias with this, and this is the signing config, which you actually pass it into the default config. You can also pass this into the release mode, and if you have a product flavor, which I have a product flavor here, also you can pass the sign-in config right there, and you build up Gradle. You have that set up. So you have to sign an APK before you upload to the Google Developer Console. With all said and done and all that covered, we can easily head straight to the main activity, and let's explain what this code is actually going to do. Before I go further, I would like to look at the layout, which should be simple. we have a subscribe layout, which is actually gonna help us actually show us what the layout is gonna look like. This is just a subscribe button. You should have that somewhere, all wrapped around a relative layout. An image view of an icon. This could be probably your trade icon or your logo, and the text view or simple. Another text view just telling the user click on the subscribe button to choose a preferred plan, and another image view which has serves as a button to trigger the on click method, which is actually going to trigger the method called unsubscribe button clicked, which you have here right there from the on click attribute. So you have that set up, and you could actually handle all this right there in the main activity. And the dashboard activity is just like the second, let's say the second activity after the plans or after the subscription plan could have been successful. You will be pushed right there to the dashboard activity. So you have that set up as well. Now in the main activity where the whole logic lies, I'll be taking it step by step. So I also want you to pay attentive at this point and follow along with what I'll be doing. You have the main activity that extends the app compact activity, and it implements the IAB broadcast receiver. You have that right there in the utility. This is out of the box. I'll be going deeper into that. And also the broadcast listener. You have the dialog, which will actually pop up to give you different plans, either monthly, either yearly, 3 months or 6 months, which you also need to add a listener to that dialog. That's why you have that implemented. So a debug tag, cool, and you have to firstly specify if there is an active subscription to the plan. So at first you add this to be null. It should be a boolean, either true or false, and to be false rather. So you have that to be false. And another boolean field is if the subscription is auto renewed. So you should set that to false initially, and you track the currently owned subscription and the options in a manage dialog. You have the first choice SKU, the second, the third, and fourth, because you are actually dealing with monthly, 3 months, 6 months, and yearly. So that's why you have that set up right there, and also with the plan SKU. Cool. Let's move ahead. Now we have the selected subscription period. This is going to actually select between the subscribing on a monthly, 3 months, 6 months, and yearly basis. So you have that set up, and the request code for the purchase flow. Cool. The helper object from the IAB helper, and the purchase notification while this app is running, which is the receiver, which will actually be being called at the point of the run of your application. These are all fields that were created out of the onCreate method. Now in the onCreate method, you call the layout subscriber layout, which is the XML. So that's fine. And you create the helper passing the context and the public key to verify the signatures, which is the base 64 encoded public key. I think I've explained that. So that will be passed right there into the IAB helper class, and it will actually be instantiated with the object. So at this point in time, you can enable the debug logging. This should actually not be true for production. This is actually true for debugging purpose if you're actually getting some feedbacks you want to actually debug further. So once you are going for production, you should add this to false. That's fine. Now after that, there is going to be an asynchronous specifier listener, which will be called once the setup completes, which you have the start setup, which is to shade the IAB helper, and on finished, you have the results gotten. Now you just test for the results. If it's success, if it is not success at this point in time, probably there's a problem somewhere. You just actually log that to the log, and if it's success, it's going to move further. So it's going to actually get the receiver listened up to, where you're going to actually register that into the broadcast receiver. and you have to fully set up this, which is going to actually go into the inventory of the stuff you own. So cool. That's starting up the IAB helper. You started that up and it's listening for different calls. So that's what that is doing. So now after this, the listener that's being called when we finish the query and the item and the subscription we own, we have to first of all know the subscription that you own. Probably this user has actually subscribed to a plan earlier or not. So we have to actually verify that at first. So you have to actually do that. So firstly, you find out which subscription is auto-renewing. Which subscription is auto-renewing? Probably which subscription is this user on? We have the purchase variables from the monthly, the 3 months, 6 months, and yearly. And now let's look at what that variables are pointing at. Because of the inventory object, which is actually gotten from the when you query the inventory finished, the result, and you get the purchase of the SKU monthly constant, which is right there from the product ID. So this is the ID of the monthly for the 3 months, 6 months, and yearly. So you're actually going to get that, and you need to test for that result. Now, if this variable is not equals to null and the monthly is auto renewing, so you have to set the auto renewed enable string boolean to true at this point in time. So if it's auto renewing and if it's not, so it's first of all going to check for the plans. Is it monthly? Is it 3 months? And are they auto renew or not? So that's where you have to change the auto renew to true. So this for the second argument, this for the third, and the fourth, which is the yearly. Yeah, that's cool. And if what returns is null, probably the monthly came up as null and the auto renewing is not triggered or is false, you need to actually make the auto renew to be false, and the SKU will be empty at this point in time. That's no SKU plan. You are not on any plan. So that's it. So now if the user is subscribed, if either subscription exists, even if neither is auto renewing, now you have to handle that as well. So you have to test if the purchased monthly gotten is null, that's if it's not equals to null, and if the verified developer payload, this is very, very important for you to actually keep tag on each subscription. You need to generate a payload that takes us down to the payload, and I will be explaining in details and even be working on the payload in the next tutorial. Because the payload, now you need to generate a payload for each user, and Google recommends that you actually need to save or store your payloads to your server, which will be identical to that user. So this is actually in the completion of a project. Probably the user has signed up and the user has signed into the application. You have the credentials of the user and you verify the user. You could generate the username, you could get the email address. So this could be tied down to each specific payload you generated and will be saved to the server. So I'm just explaining it theoretically. So once it's saved to the server, the server will have to give or to return back the result once it's been called when you trigger the verified developer payload. Do you understand this? Once you trigger this method, we'll get to look at this method right there. It's still beneath, and this method should communicate with the server to verify the payload you're seeing right now to the user. So definitely the email of this user or probably the username of this user should match a payload you have in your server. If not, definitely this user has not subscribed to your plan. So this is actually going to help if you actually the user is running the application on another Android device, so the user won't be billed twice. I think this is good. This is a good user experience. So I will implore us to actually get the payload done right there on the server, and you get that verified using some HTTP calls. Probably you use Retrofit, you use Rivoli to actually get those calls done. So we actually get to do that probably in the next tutorial, and that's going to finish up your in-app billing structure and make it robust and solidified. Let's move further. Now you verify the developer payload, you pass in the different plans into there to actually verify if this particular user has subscribed or not, and you do that for the plans you have. Now you log that. Probably this does not have a subscription, or the user has a subscription. At the point in time, you update the UI. If the user has a subscription, you update the UI. Probably you move to the next activity. You don't need to subscribe. You've actually covered that, so you actually don't need to see that at first launch of the application. So that's cool. Now let's say the receive broadcast. When you receive the broadcast notification that the inventory of items has changed, probably the user has upgraded, or the user had downgraded to something else. So you have to actually get this done to and undo this gracefully. Now we're going to actually describe the subscribe flow, where the user will start the purchase. Probably if the user clicked on the subscribe button, which you have that triggered from the layout. So what are the steps that we actually need to cover if the user is coming in for the first time to subscribe for a plan? You first of all get the helper, that is the base 64 key. If a subscription is supported on your device or not, the base 64 will actually get that done for you out of the box, calling the subscription supported. If the subscription supported on your device or not, you get that settled. And if it's supported, you move further. You have a character sequence array called options, and now we're going to be using these options right there with the dialog. If not subscribed to the plan, or you're not auto renewed, so you've not done anyone, you've not subscribed at all, and you're not even auto renewed, definitely you're a new user. So you have to start up with a new plan. Now we set up the options. We have the character sequence areas for length. The first is going to be the monthly, the 3 months, 6 months, and yearly. So this is where you actually pass in the label of each of these plans. So after that, in the first SKU, you pass in the constant, which is going to be the product ID of the monthly. You pass in for the 3 months, 6 months, and yearly into the appropriate string SKU that you've actually set up right there at the beginning. So that's cool. That's for the first one. Else, if this is the subscription that you want to upgrade or downgrade, so only one option is valid. If probably you want to downgrade or you want to upgrade, probably you're on a monthly and you want to upgrade to 3 months, or you could even upgrade to 6, or you could even up straight down to the yearly. So once you're on a monthly plan, you should be able to see other plans, the 3 other plans. So that's what that means. Now if you're on a monthly, the upgrade flow, you can't downgrade from monthly. There's nothing lower than that. So you have to upgrade. You could actually see the 3 other plans, which is the monthly, the 3 months, the 6 months, and the yearly, and their appropriate SKU product ID moved down to their SKU string. So you have that set up. Else, if it's a 3 months, so you could either downgrade to monthly, or you could upgrade to 6 months or yearly. So you should have that options available as well. Now if it's 6 months, you could only upgrade to yearly or downgrade to 3 months and monthly. You should have all other options specified as well. The last else statement will be yearly. So you cannot upgrade more than any yearly plan. You could only downgrade. Probably you want to downgrade to monthly, 3 months, or 6 months. So you have that also set up right there. And the fourth SKU choice could be empty right now because you only handle the 3 SKU right there in the if else statement. So that will be set up for the upgrade and the downgrade. And now the title, if they subscribe to Deleroy, you have to set up a title for the builder, which is for the dialog. Select your subscription period. So you could actually, if it's an auto renewed, to reactivate your subscription, you select your subscription, just some messages to let the user know what they're supposed to do at the point in time. And you create up the alert builder, which is a dialog, and which will actually be either continue or cancel this plan. So cool. Now you still need to undo the clicks of each one of these dialog. So we've assigned the first 0 to the first choice index. The second choice could take 1, which is because an array will start from 0. The third subscription could take 2, while the fourth one could take 3. So that's why you could see the IDs specify 0, which is for the first choice SKU. The 1 is for the second, for the third, and for the fourth, based on which if else statement is appropriate for that particular user. So I think you should understand what that means. So afterwards, you could actually undo the positive button. So if it's a positive, definitely they're triggering for, okay, I'm signing up for this. That's what that means. So at this point in time, you need to generate a payload, because that's for a new plan, or even if it's upgrading, that's still a new one. Upgrading to something new, downgrading to something new. You have to generate a payload, and that payload must match the SKU ID right there on your server. So probably are generating 14678. 14678 is unique for monthly plans, and now the 14678 has been bought by a user called Deleroy Studios. You should understand what that logic should actually work out with. So 14678 is unique to Deleroy Studios and unique also to a monthly plan. So this is where you should generate the payload, and you should actually get that registered too on your server. Your server should be aware of what you're generating and who you are giving it to. So you have to do that. Yeah, it's recommended you do that with the interchange of your server. And we actually made this empty because we are not generating anyone now, which I said I'll be covering in later tutorials. And for selected subscription period, you test if it's empty, you pass in the first choice SKU. Cool. And the user currently has a valid subscription. Any purchase action is going to replace that subscription. If the user has a valid one, at least the user is upgrading or downgrading, you need to swap the old SKU to the new one. So that's what this is actually gonna do for you. Right there, you set the wait screen for a while so that the launch purchase flow could be triggered at this point in time, so that this is actually going to get that done to the server, to the ABL per server with the payload. You can see the payload and identifier, and it's actually, so you need to actually catch for an exception during this process, and the exception could be the IAB async in progress exception. So you could call, you should log that error launching purchase flow, another is in progress. You might not need to show this anyway, but in debug you could see that right there in the console, and you should set the wait screen to false at this point in time. You don't need to wait anymore. There's an error somewhere. So you reset the dialog options to be empty, and you have that set up. So that's cool. On activity for result, you need to pass on the activity result to the helper for handling the data, the results, the request code, the result code, and the data. That's the intent data, which could be handled. So you could handle it yourself, which you actually call the super on activity results. You pass in these parameters, and else that you log that to console on activity result handled by the IAB utility. That's out of the box, which you really don't need to put much importance in that. Now look at the verified developer payload, which was called earlier right there. when the user is, you test if the user has subscribed or not. Can you see that? Now it's the user, the verified payload will pass in the SKU, the ID, the product ID as a parameter, right into this method, which is the purchase flow. And you should have a method to call probably the server to get the developer payload. You understand? So that will be equals to the payload presently. So you now the payload will be populated with a value. You get what that means? You want to get the payload of that user. So that's what that means. You have to get the developer payload based on so now these are a few parameters you might need to send to the server. You might need to send the email address of this user, and also the plan that the user is on. Probably the user is on a monthly plan so the email address should match that right there from the server to generate that, and the payload could be generated alongside, so you could get that back from the server, and the string payload will be populated with a payload figure. So that's what that means, and you return true. So now there will be a payload right there in the code. So there is a callback for when a purchase is finished. If the IAB on purchase finished listener has been triggered. So either if it's failure, there will be an error purchasing. This wait screen should be set to false. You don't need to wait. And if at the point in time the verified payload purchase is not authenticated, so you should be able to trigger that as an error as well. That there's an error while authenticating this verification, this payload or this user. So you don't need to set wait screen. You have to set that to false. And if the purchase SKU of the monthly, 3 months, 6 months, or yearly was done successfully, now you could actually log that to the console, or you could also alert the user that thank you for subscribing to Delaroy. So at this point in time, the purchase flow was successful. So you could actually call on the update UI. The update UI is just an intent to another activity. So you could actually trigger to another activity. Now, if you should notice, the subscribe to Delaroy is being true at this point in time. The auto renewed is being triggered, and the SKU is being set. So which purchase was done? Is it the monthly, 3 months, 6 months, and yearly? At this point, it's been set. So you could also pass all this right there to the intent to actually have it somewhere to tell the user probably you're on a monthly plan or you're in a 6-month plan. Do you want to move on? Do you want to downgrade? Do you want to upgrade? So you could continually work on the results you get from the on IAB purchase finished listener. So you don't need to set a wait screen at this point in time. You have to set that to false. You have the code when consumption is complete. So you update the UI. I think you've done that. The undestroy, when you destroy the activity. So it's important to dispose of the helper. So you could actually unregister the broadcast receiver, and very importantly, you dispose when finished. That's the mhelper object. You could dispose that off. The update UI, which you could see, is actually going to trigger an intent to the dashboard activity. So you have this setup. Else, it will just keep staying. That is if there is a subscribe to Delaroy. If this is true, if this has been set to true, because at the beginning it was false, but at the point in time of different conditions, you could set that to true. So you enable or disable this is the wait screen. So this where you actually set up this visibility, either gone or visible. So that's just the wait screen, and the alert dialog message. So these are just some helper methods that actually help some of those results. So it's actually going to help communication with the user. So with all said and done, I believe you could actually understand one or two things from this tutorial. You should be able to integrate a subscription plan without much hassle, without much problem, into your already finished Android application, which is ready to hit the stores, which you really want to monetize and make some cool cash from. So with all this, you can integrate that perfectly. And the next part to this should be the payload. Let's talk about the payload. It could be very, very important as well. This is where you actually get your in-app billing completed. Robust in-app billing, which you continue to verify different user, even if multiple users are using the application. So you avoid billing them more than once or twice, so that they won't actually leave your application. Once the user buy your application, you should be able to log in into another device or use another device, still be able to enjoy what you have for them. So with all this, I'm good to go. Let's get to look at the manifest. Probably there's a tweak. Cool. Nothing funky. Just add up your dashboard activity, which is just an empty activity to call in the layout dashboard activity XML. And if you're using internet, probably you want to communicate with the server, you have to lock in the internet permission as well. So with this, I'll be signing out, and I'll be saying thank you very much for hanging out with me throughout this tutorial. I'll show some screencasts of this and how the flow actually work. But probably because of my location, my credit card was not working. But I'll still show you all this, and you could actually try yours. And I will implore you to leave any queries to this tutorial. Let's get to discuss this one big family. Let's get to share ideas together. Thank you guys one more time. Have a lovely day. Bye bye.